I want to introduce you to a gentleman that I've gotten to know in a very intimate way this year from a business standpoint. He's been here for 22 years. He's served as your financial officer. He's helped me this year as our operating officer, wearing two different hats. He's a gentleman with a cool head, a sound business mind, and a warm heart. He's our corporate historian. He's our financial chief. He's a man I trust. I want to introduce you to Trent Taylor, our chief financial officer, to give you our numbers for the day.
Good morning. It's my privilege to share both financial and statistical, I've got to learn how to talk today, information from 2015 with you. I have to begin this morning by saying what an exciting time it is to be at AQHA. In my 22 years here, I've not seen the staff as excited about the future as they are right now. 2015 was truly a transitional year, and we've made significant steps toward building the future, but we still have a journey before us. First, we will begin with the financial statements. The markets did not cooperate with the timing at our year end, but I plan to show you how the operations have held steady. I will present today the consolidated financial statements. The complete audit report is included in the annual report as well as individually on the website. In addition, the directors receive quarterly financial statements to keep them informed on the financial status of AQHA, so they will have that information to pass along to the members. Please keep in mind the audit is in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, and so therefore our audit must be a consolidation of the association, the foundation, the incentive fund, the Bank of America Racing Challenge, ARC, and Robin Glenn pedigrees, even though we account for all of these as separate entities. Our auditors, Moss Adams, is one of the 12 largest firms in the United States. More importantly, they have a large nonprofit practice, and having that expertise is very helpful as we move forward with our strategic plans. The audit was presented to your audit committee, which is made up of the executive committee and the investment oversight council. The auditors found no deficiencies or weaknesses in the internal control structure, and no adjustments were made to the financials as a result of the audit. We received an unmodified or clean opinion. Let's begin by looking at the consolidated statement of position, the first financial in the audit. Total consolidated assets are $96,632,667 compared to almost $102,425,000 last year. The largest change from the previous year is the decrease in the investments of almost $5.3 million that we'll discuss further. All other assets stayed fairly consistent. One of our biggest areas in our financial position is our investments, and AQHA began working with Monroe Voss Consulting Group 15 years ago. Our representative, Tim Voss, is Vice Chair and Director of Research for Monroe Voss. As shown on this chart, the total investment account of almost $70 million under his supervision is broken down to these funds as of September 30th, 2015. With the amounts for the foundation broken down further by fund. AQHA represents 36%, the various funds of the foundation represent 51%, the incentive fund at 8%, and the Bank of America Racing Challenge at 5%. We owe a big thank you to the Executive Committee and especially to the Investment Oversight Council for their long-term approach and dedication to making the most of our investments. Recommended association management suggests that there should be 1 year of association operating budget in investments. Currently, the association has less than 60%. To break down the total consolidated assets of over $96.6 million, we see the association is at $40 million, the foundation at $47.3 million, the incentive fund at $5.7 million, and the racing challenge at $3.5 million. The liabilities were down over $2 million to $35,332,661. The other deferred income is staying steady, and that's a positive note for me. This includes the memberships, subscriptions, and pending work, and this is a sign our pipeline is maintaining new work. If we subtract the total liabilities, which includes the payables and the deferred revenue, as well as the incentive fund and racing challenge funds to be paid out in future years, this leaves us with a consolidated net asset of $61,300,006. To break down the assets by entity, we can see the association makes up $13.3 million. This is the number that if you were running a business would be the equity in a for-profit business. And the foundation comprises of $18.4 million in unrestricted assets, almost $3.3 million in temporarily restricted assets, and $25 million in permanently restricted assets. The temporarily and permanently restricted net assets all relate to the foundation's donor restricted contributions. To break this down to a one-member level for AQHA, if we take the net assets of the association and divide by the number of members at September 30th, it results in a $51 value per member. Just think of all the programs and services your association provides for that equity. Next, we will look at the consolidated statement of activities. Total unrestricted revenues decreased from $46,768,375 to $46,037,391. On a positive note, total revenues have remained fairly level for the past 3 years. I think it's important to note the decrease in total revenue of almost $12 million from 2008. Again, these numbers reflect the total consolidated revenues from the association and all the related entities. And to break these numbers down from the audit, most income areas were down or comparable to the previous year. Incentive fund and racing challenge income is the total amount of cash paid out for these programs during the year, and we'll see it like amounts on the expense side. The big increase in other revenue is the additional sales to other associations by ARC. If we break the income down into a pie chart, it shows we have a variety of sources and no one source is predominant. Again, these numbers reflect the total consolidated revenues from the association, the foundation, the incentive fund, Bank of America Racing Challenge, ARC, and RGP, all based upon the audit. The operating expenses increased by a little over 0.5% to $48,404,493. We continue to look at ways to reduce expenses and maintain the level of customer service our members have come to expect. Returning back to the consolidated audit, here are the operating expenses broken down by program area. Most areas stayed fairly consistent with the prior year. The increase in G&A can be tied to the increase in sales for ARC. This pie chart shows the expenses by program area, which we are required to do by generally accepted accounting principles. These are significant areas we have identified. The program areas include multiple departments and services we provide to our members. Volatility in the markets is a big factor in our financial picture this year. Here is a Dow Jones Industrial Average chart from October of 2014 through January of 2016. If the markets had shifted to the levels that were 6 weeks prior to 9/30 or 2 weeks after 9/30, this would be an entirely different report. And just a note, yesterday the markets were up at over 1,000 points from where they were at 9/30. This gives us a decrease in unrestricted net assets from operations of $2,367,102. These amounts do not include any investment income approved for operations. The investment returns continue to play an important part. The prior 2 years reported over a $4 million gain each year. We see the pension plan actuarial loss was related to the investment balances at 9/30. In addition, please remember, as I've mentioned in previous years, this is a direct result of the fluctuation in interest rates, which makes the liability even more volatile than the markets. When combined with other activities, we have a decrease in unrestricted net assets of $4,180,100. The quarterly director financials differ from the audit because the association is presented individually, and the alternative presentation of investment income for operations. It's the same numbers, just in different places. For many years, the executive committee, as part of the budget process, have included 5% of the investment balances as a way to fund the various programs of the association and keep our fees as low as possible. In previous years, investment income used for operations was held at $2.5 million to offset the decreasing revenues during the economic downturns. For the year ending 9/30/2014, the Executive Committee reduced the amount down to $2 million to begin to replenish the reserves used during this recession. A drop to $1.5 million in 2015 and a further reduction to $1 million is in the approved budget for 9/30/2016. The temporarily and permanently restricted net assets all relate to the Foundation's donor restricted contributions. Temporarily net assets decreased $698,148. The total increase in permanently restricted net assets of $1,286,000 added to the decrease in unrestricted net assets and temporarily restricted income brings us to a decrease of just over $3,591,000 and a consolidated net assets of $61,300,006. The consolidated statement of cash flows is the third and final statement in the audit. It reflects the overall increase in the cash flow of $814,429. The footnotes of the audit are a significant portion of the audited financial statements and can be reviewed on AQHA's website. Now on to the other statistical information. We're past the financials. Y'all can wake up now. We have asked about the status of our computer initiative. As you recall, we selected Dell Technologies to move our IT functionality forward. We're currently in the middle of phase 3 of the project, and I'm pleased to report we are making significant progress at the beginning and are beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Please remember this will be the technological foundation for us to move forward into the future. But a note of caution as you go through your committee agendas, please keep in mind our IT resources are already overloaded and may not be able to make the changes you request in the time frame you would like. So please be realistic in the requested changes if they include programming at all. ARC, or Award Recognition Concepts, continues to be a viable tool for our association. Last year alone, AQHA was able to save over $500,000 throughout the year for awards instead of purchasing them from an outside vendor. Because of the tremendous growth of ARC, we have moved business to a separate business entity. It is still wholly owned by AQHA, and the proceeds continue to support the programs of AQHA. In addition, we continue to secure business from other associations, banks, insurance companies, and many others. Last year, ARC brought in an additional $800,000 in revenue for the association. We expect ARC to continue to grow and be an additional revenue source for years to come. RGP gives the association a unique opportunity not only to promote the quarter horse in ways that we never have, but it also gives us the opportunity to create another revenue source for the association. With over $1 billion in earnings recorded on the RGP database, it has many performance records and data that are not included on the official AQHA records. It helps us to create a more complete picture for our horses. I am very excited about the upcoming RGP catalog builder, and I think it will change the way we all sell our horses. Version 1 will give us performance horse paragraph style pedigrees. It allows you to manage and produce your own fully researched quarter horse cell catalog, including cell catalog indexes covering sire paragraphs, cell catalog front pages, photo pages, pre-sale web promotion, printer's catalog, and stall cards, and no pedigree writer is required. Whether it's for one horse or 1,000, it combines AQHA points and awards with RGP database, event placing money earned, including racing data for complete information on all American quarter horses. I'm very excited to get that launched in the next couple of months, and I think y'all will be too. For a complete breakdown of the stats of membership transfers and registrations, you can access our annual report online. We closed out the year with 260,531 members, which is down a little over 1.1% from the previous year. This is the smallest decrease we've seen since 2007, a definite positive considering we have to stabilize before we begin to grow again. There is huge potential for growth out there for people who love our horse, and we need to educate them about our association. When you compare our membership to these 10 other breed registries, AQHA makes up almost 66% of the memberships in total. we continue to increase our market share in the industry. I think it's important to look at the leveling that we've seen over the last 3 years in transfers. Our transfers this year were 120,989, and it's been a very steady year as far as transfers. On registrations, we completed 74,030 this year. We had a decrease from the prior year, but if you'll recall last year's presentation, we had registered additional horses by streamlining some of the processes and reducing the number of pending registrations. Looking at the applications received over the past 3 years, we have the same leveling that we've seen in both the membership and the transfers. Again, in comparison to the other breed registries, our number is still a testament to the great breed we represent, with over 56% of the horses registered last year being American Quarter Horses. If you have seen the By the Numbers presentation in previous years, you may remember this graph. It represents the number of registrations by foaling years. This is an important statistic to follow when you consider the supply and demand for our horses, and it's great news here that we see the leveling of the number of horses registered, and hopefully a sign that we've reached the end of the recession for the decline that we've experienced the last 12 years. This is a record of the number of stallion breeding reports filed by the deadline each year. Even though we saw additional decline in the number of stallions of 4.4%, we were up about 400 mares last year and lost a little over 1,600 this year, but looking at the last 3 years have been relatively even. Based on historic data and the number of mares bred, I would estimate our registrations for 2016 to be around 72 to 73,000. I think it's important to look at these trends. This is the number of stallions broken down by the number of mares they breed. Please note the number of stallions in the 3 groups breeding 25 or more all increased, with the exception of the group breeding 50 to 99 decreased by only 4 stallions, while the groups breeding 24 or less all had significant decreases. Please remember these are not static groups, they fluctuate from year to year. For example, the increase in stallions breeding over 100 mares represents 17 new stallions, and 6 dropped from that group in 2014. Although this chart was an interesting view, please note the stallion groups that saw the increases are reflected with the tiny slices starting at 12 o'clock. If we take those stallion groups and look at how many mares each group actually bred, we see the same groups with increases and decreases. And a graphical look at that number of the mares bred by each of these groups, it's interesting to note that 27% of the mares were bred by stallions that are breeding more than 25 mares, and 73% are bred by stallions breeding less than 24. There are exciting things happening in our show area as well. We had an increase in the number of entries for our amateur, novice amateur, and equestrians with disabilities. Overall, there was a 1% decrease in entries at our shows. Combined shows and special event entries were almost 953,000. We have an addition of another Level 1 championship in Oklahoma City next month. We had a 32% increase in the World Show entries, due in part to the addition of the Adequine Level 2 classes, and our ranching segment is booming, with the biggest growth being the ranch riding, and VRH classes being held on an individual basis at potentially all shows, added 43% increase to the VRH World Show next week. In racing, there's some good news as well. Total purses for the American Quarter Horses ticked up by 2.5% to almost $130 million, and the average handle increased 5.9% to over $309 million. Better news came for owners in the form of an increase of average purse per race, up 3.3% to $16,400, and average earnings per starter up 4.6% to $8,474. The exciting part for me was that there were 201 additional 3-year-old races, and that's a significant increase of 28.2%, and 3-year-old purses were up 18%. The Bank of America Racing Challenge had enrollments up 1.8%. In summary, while our financials are showing the stress of the markets and the reduction of our dependence on investment earnings, we must continue to evaluate our programs and ensure we are providing the relevant services to our members in the most financially responsible manner. Our industry is leveling off with 3 years now of consistent numbers. I'm just ready to start seeing the increases, and I believe we can get there if we keep energizing our members. Overall, 2015 was a transformational year, and we have great things to look forward to in the future. Thank you.